On a sunny morning in paradise, a housekeeper opened the door to room 718 and stepped straight into a nightmare. Inside the marble bathtub, the motionless body of a young woman. In the hallway, her boyfriend, face flat on the floor, silent. At first, it looked like a lover's quarrel turned deadly. But within 48 hours, detectives would uncover a digital trail that stretched from a luxury resort in Bali to secret cryptocurrency wallets, to a global criminal empire hiding in plain sight. And at the center of it all was a 26-year-old crypto billionaire who saw something he was never supposed to. The island of Surama sits like a bright jewel in the Javanese Sea. Tourists come for the white beaches, ancient temples, and luxury resorts. But beneath all the beauty, a different kind of traveler had started to arrive. People looking for privacy, secrets, and a way to escape. On the morning of May 17, 2024, staff at the upscale Azure Bay Resort began their usual routines. Palm trees swayed in the breeze under a bright blue sky. Gardeners tended to the resort's perfect gardens. Inside, the polished marble floors of the East Wing reflected soft lighting as a housekeeper named Nyoman made her way to room 718. She knocked 3 times and called out, "Housekeeping!" in her usual friendly tone. No one answered. She took out her keycard, unlocked the door, and stepped into the cool, dark room. What she found less than 2 minutes later would destroy the peaceful image of the Azure Bay Resort and send shockwaves from the local police department all the way to global financial markets. Mei Zhang, a 23-year-old former art student from Shanghai, was lying still in the marble bathtub. The water had a light pink color. In the hallway between the bathroom and the bedroom, her boyfriend, 26-year-old Victor Zhao, lay motionless. There were signs of a violent struggle. Within hours, yellow police tape surrounded the crime scene. It looked completely out of place against the resort's perfectly kept beauty. Detective Wayan Dharma arrived not long after. He wore a light suit, even in the heat. His weathered face showed no emotion as he examined the scene. The resort manager pulled him aside, nervously fixing his tie. He quietly asked if the situation could be handled quickly and quietly for the sake of the hotel's image. Detective Dharma stayed calm. "The victims matter more than your bookings," he said firmly. At first, it looked like a relationship fight that had ended in tragedy. But soon, signs began to show it was something far more complicated. Something that would pull Dharma into a deep investigation, one involving cryptocurrency, international crime, and a new kind of threat that crossed borders without ever needing a passport. Dr. Kirana, the medical examiner, studied Victor's body. She was experienced and efficient. Her report noted multiple defensive wounds on Victor's arms and hands, but the patterns of the injuries didn't match what she usually saw in cases like this. She also determined that May had already died before being placed in the bathtub. As the investigation began, a simple story started to form. A couple arguing, things getting violent, and both of them ending up dead. Hotel staff had reported loud shouting in Mandarin the night before. Someone had called the front desk, but by the time security checked, the room was silent. Still, 3 details caught Detective Dharma's attention, details that made him question the simple domestic violence explanation. First, Victor Zhao was not just a tourist. Even though he looked young and casual, background checks showed he was a cryptocurrency trader worth nearly $600 million. He mostly used decentralized platforms, which made it hard to trace his money. But he had a big digital footprint, and it was carefully managed. Second, the couple had booked 3 hotel rooms for the same night, one at the Azure Bay Resort, one at the Surama Grand in the city, and one at a smaller guest house on the island's eastern shore. All of the bookings were paid in full, but only one had been used, room 718 at the Azure Bay. Third, the condition of the hotel room raised more questions. The sliding door to the balcony was unlocked. There was no clear sign of forced entry, but Dharma noticed the balconies were close enough together that someone could move from one to another with a bit of athletic skill. Even more troubling, the east wing of the resort had no security cameras covering the outside balconies. A small detail, until now. Detective Dharma stepped out onto the balcony. The warm air carried the smell of salt water and frangipani flowers. Below him, tourists played in the resort's infinity pool, completely unaware that a tragedy had happened just a few floors above. He pulled out his phone and called a number he rarely used. He was calling Lin Bai Chen, a consultant with expertise in cryptocurrency-related crimes. She had worked for Singapore's cybercrime division. He gave her a quick summary. A wealthy crypto trader and his girlfriend had been found dead under strange circumstances. He asked her to fly in and help with the investigation, but neither of them knew that, thousands of kilometers away in Vancouver, someone else had heard the news. His name was Gabriel Chen. When he learned about Victor Zhao's death, he felt both sadness and fear. Gabriel had once been Victor's business partner. They were also close friends. Gabriel immediately opened his laptop and activated several security layers. He knew exactly how dangerous the situation was. If Victor was dead, others might be next, including him. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit coffee shop in Hong Kong, a woman with sharp eyes and an average, forgettable appearance closed her burner phone. Phase 1 of the plan was complete. There had been a few complications, but the main goal was still within reach. She needed to update her boss, a mysterious figure she knew only by one name: the architect. The deaths at the Azure Bay Resort were not the end. They were only the beginning. This story had actually started months earlier when Victor Zhao discovered something he was never supposed to see. 8 months before the deaths at Azure Bay Resort, Victor Zhao was sitting in the corner of the Blue Lotus Cafe in Shanghai. It was his favorite spot. The cafe was known for two things: amazing cold brew coffee and a private, secure internet network. That made it popular with digital entrepreneurs and cryptocurrency experts. Victor didn't look like someone rich or important. He wore faded jeans and a plain gray hoodie. He blended in with the other young people staring at their laptops. Only his custom keyboard and the intense look in his eyes hinted that he was working on something different. Lin Wei, the cafe's owner, noticed that Victor had been there for hours. He brought him another cold brew. Victor smiled quickly, clearly having lost track of time. Wei joked that Victor must be working on something big. He was. If Wei had looked at Victor's screen, he would have seen what looked like a mess of colorful lines and numbers. To most people, it meant nothing. But to Victor, it was a map, a strange and beautiful one, and it had been keeping him awake at night. It started as a curiosity. Victor had made his fortune early in the cryptocurrency world. Now, he spent most of his time looking into odd patterns in blockchain data patterns that could reveal new trading methods or weak spots in security systems. But this pattern was different. Hidden in the middle of thousands of tiny, random transactions, Victor found something big: a complicated money laundering system that was moving billions of dollars. It used automated software, hidden exchanges, and new kinds of blockchain technology. It was smart, beautiful even, but also dangerous. The deeper Victor looked, the more he understood this wasn't just someone stealing money. The scale and complexity of the system made it seem like the work of a government or a powerful crime group with lots of money and tech skills. Even more disturbing, Victor found that similar patterns were connected to several mysterious deaths in the crypto world. Some of the people who might have also discovered this system had died under strange conditions. That night, Victor made a secure video call to his old friend Gabriel Chen. Gabriel had been his roommate at university and later his business partner. Gabriel now lived in Vancouver. He was one of the few people Victor trusted completely. Victor shared his screen. He showed Gabriel the blockchain pattern he'd discovered. Then he showed something even more chilling: photos that had started appearing on his phone 3 days earlier. The photos showed Victor doing everyday things: entering his building, meeting friends, sitting in the cafe. There were no words, no threats, just the images. But the message was clear: someone is watching you. Gabriel's expression changed from curious to serious. At first, he had doubted Victor. Now he believed him. He told Victor to go into hiding. With his money and skills, Victor could disappear and create a new identity. Victor laughed, but there was no humor in it. How was he supposed to explain this to the police? A secret financial crime system involving multiple countries and technologies most people didn't understand. What Victor didn't say but was starting to believe was that some government officials might already be involved. The money trails connected to powerful people and suspicious events all across Asia. Gabriel's advice was simple: leave, go dark now. But Victor had one big reason not to run. Mei Jiang. She had come into his life 6 months earlier like a bright, unexpected light. She was an artist, creative, confident, and completely unlike anyone else he knew. Her art combined traditional Chinese styles with modern, emotional themes. They had met at a small gallery where Victor bought one of her pieces. They started talking about her work that turned into a deeper connection, one that surprised both of them. Mei didn't know much about cryptocurrency. She thought Victor was just good with computers and had made some smart investments. He had kept his work a secret, partly to protect her and partly because she made life feel normal. Now he had a choice: disappear and leave her behind, or take her with him and put her in danger. That night, while Mei slept next to him, Victor made a decision. He would leave, but not alone. He would tell Mei just enough to explain why they had to go. He wouldn't overwhelm her with technical details. They would leave Shanghai together. They'd go somewhere off the radar, somewhere safe. Victor chose Indonesia. With thousands of islands and a growing digital nomad scene, it would be a good place to hide for a while. He could pretend to be a remote tech worker. Mei could focus on her art. They could move around, stay under the radar, and avoid being tracked. But Victor didn't know how badly his security had already been compromised. The same tools he used to trace the hidden money system were now being used to trace him. The moment he booked flights to Bali and reserved 3 different hotels, someone on the other side of the world saw it. His digital trail lit up their system like a flare. A text appeared on Victor's phone. "Looking forward to seeing your new destinations. Travel safely." A cold wave ran through him. They weren't just watching. They already knew everything. In a private corner of an expensive restaurant in Hong Kong, a man known only as the Architect sat at his usual table. He was 62 years old, with silver-streaked hair and a perfectly tailored suit. He looked like a retired banker or a high-end business consultant, but that was just a cover. In reality, the Architect had once worked in intelligence. Now, he was the quiet mastermind behind one of the most powerful criminal networks in the world. A woman walked up to his table. She looked extremely ordinary, the type of person you'd see but later remember nothing about. That was on purpose. Her name was Sophia Lin. Her average height, simple clothing, and plain features made her perfect for dangerous assignments. Without speaking, she slid a tablet across the table. On it was an update. Their target, Victor Zhao, had made travel plans. The Architect looked at the information but didn't touch the device. Victor had booked 3 hotel rooms in Bali. It was a cautious move, one that showed intelligence. Sophia asked if they should intercept him at the airport. The Architect shook his head. Too many risks, too many cameras. He wanted Victor to arrive, get comfortable, and think he was safe. That would give his team the upper hand. The more time Victor spent in unfamiliar territory, the easier he would be to control. What Sophia didn't say, but both of them knew, was that Victor Zhao was more than just a threat. He was an opportunity. Victor held something priceless: cryptographic keys to digital wallets worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Some of those accounts required biometric scans to open, like fingerprints or facial recognition. Sophia quietly mentioned that the girlfriend Mei might complicate things. The Architect barely reacted. She's just a loose end. Focus on Zhao. But he was making a mistake. The Architect had built his empire by staying ahead of changes in the criminal world. He'd adapted from physical crime to digital crime. He'd hired smart hackers. He kept operations tight and secure, but he still thought in old-school ways: money, locations, territory. Victor belonged to a newer generation. He saw the digital world as his home, and what the Architect didn't understand was how well Victor had protected himself. Victor had created a dead man's switch, a secret system that would activate if he didn't check in every 72 hours. If triggered, it would release everything he knew: detailed evidence of the laundering operation sent to law enforcement agencies around the world. It would also move some of his crypto funds to trusted contacts, including groups that tracked financial crime. One of those contacts, Lin Bai Chen, was about to get involved. Back in Singapore, Lynn was packing her bags for Sarama when a strange, encrypted message appeared on her screen. It included blockchain addresses, transaction details, and a short note. "If anything happens to me, follow the pattern. VZ." She didn't know who VZ was, but she understood the message, and the data was serious. It meant something big was happening. She just didn't realize she was now part of Victor Zhao's backup plan, one of several people chosen to help finish what he started if things went wrong. Back in Hong Kong, the architect finished his meal and made a choice that would set everything in motion. He told Sophia to send Kai and the twins. He wanted the situation handled within 48 hours. Kai Wong was his top fixer, former military, calm under pressure, deadly when needed. He specialized in making deaths look like accidents or suicides. Jian and Jun Lim, known as the twins, were expert hackers and security specialists. They could get past most digital systems and physical ones too. Together, the three of them had handled problems like this before. Quietly, permanently. Sophia asked what to do if Zhao resisted. The architect's tone changed. There are ways to convince even the stubborn ones. Meanwhile, Victor and May were boarding their flight to Bali. They had no idea what was coming. The architect went back to his office, a private room in a penthouse building. His computer was disconnected from the internet for security. He reviewed Victor's digital activity. It was impressive. Victor had found parts of the money laundering network, but not everything. Still, something about this bothered the architect. Victor had managed to find a system that was supposed to be completely hidden. They had used every trick: privacy software, anonymous wallets, cross-chain tools. No one had gotten close before. So how had Victor done it? The architect paused. Maybe Victor didn't figure it out on his own. Maybe someone on the inside had helped him. If that was true, then his entire operation could be at risk. The architect picked up a secure phone. He gave the order: send Kai to Bali that night. Coordinate with the local team. Priority 1, get access to Victor's crypto wallets. Priority 2, tie up loose ends. Permanently. Ngurah Rai International Airport was full of movement and sound, tourists laughing, locals returning home, announcements playing over the speakers. In the crowd, Victor Zhao and Mei Zhang walked out of the arrivals gate looking like any other young couple starting a tropical vacation. Mei looked around with wide eyes. She was drawn to the beautifully carved wooden panels in the terminal. She noticed the way light passed through the building, the colors in the traditional clothing worn by airport staff. Everything inspired her artistic eye. Victor gently squeezed her hand. He told her the beaches and temples would be perfect for her next painting. But as Mei looked around in wonder, Victor looked with suspicion. He scanned for anything that felt off, any stranger who stared too long, any person who seemed to follow them. He had learned to do this over the past few months after realizing someone was watching him. They had a cover story. Victor was a remote software developer, part of Bali's growing digital nomad community. Mei was an artist searching for inspiration. The story was close enough to the truth that it felt natural to repeat. Their driver, arranged by the Azure Bay Resort, greeted them politely and loaded their bags. As they drove along the scenic coastline, Mei chatted with the driver about Balinese art. She asked questions, smiled, enjoyed the moment. Victor said little. He watched the rearview mirror, memorized license plates, noticed which vehicles stayed behind them too long. When they arrived, the Azure Bay Resort looked like a dream. The building stood tall near the shore, blending modern luxury with traditional Balinese design. The welcome area smelled of flowers and ocean breeze. At the front desk, Victor requested a high-floor room with a sea view, something quiet, with fewer neighbors, somewhere easier to defend if necessary. Mei found his request a bit specific, but didn't say anything. The bellhop led them to the east wing, into room 718. It was exactly what Victor had hoped for: a corner suite with a large balcony, a wide view of the ocean, and most importantly, close access to a service stairwell. Victor tipped the bellhop generously. He wanted them to be remembered as kind and polite guests, not ones who drew attention. Once alone, he moved quickly. He checked the locks, looked for signs of tampering. He examined outlets and air vents. He checked for hidden cameras or devices. Meanwhile, Mei unpacked. She set up her sketchbook and paints by the window. She spoke about the light in Bali, how different it looked here. Clearer, warmer. She was excited to begin a new piece. Victor paused his inspection and stood beside her. For a moment, he saw what she saw. The ocean, the colors, the quiet. He let himself feel calm, but only for a moment. At the same time, elsewhere in the resort, a hotel employee sent a short text. He had been recruited by the architect's network months ago, pressured because of gambling debts. His job was simple: report any guests who matched a certain description. Now, he sent a message. Chinese couple, mid-20s, room 718, East Wing. The message reached Kai Wang, waiting in a regular rental car in the parking lot. He checked his phone. The twins had already begun their work. They had connected to Victor's devices remotely and were trying to break through his defenses. A message came in: connection made, password attempts failed, security is strong. Kai wasn't surprised. Victor was smart, but he knew something else. People were always the weakest part of any system. That night, Victor and May had dinner at one of the resort's beachside restaurants. Victor chose a table with a clear view of all the entrances. He sat with his back to the wall. He had one beer, no more. May, unaware of how closely Victor was watching their surroundings, enjoyed the fresh seafood and cocktails. She laughed. She teased him for being quiet. She asked if something was bothering him. Is work stressing you out? Victor forced a smile. Just tired, he said. Later, as May took a shower, Victor sent a secure message to Gabriel. He said they'd arrived. No signs of trouble yet. Security protocols were in place. Gabriel replied quickly. He said people in Shanghai had been asking about Victor. He was laying false trails, just as they had planned. Victor erased the chat history. He activated an extra layer of encryption on his laptop. Then, he made a call to the front desk. He asked about late-night room service, not because he was hungry, but because he wanted to make sure staff were still available in case of an emergency. As he hung up, he noticed something on his laptop, a small blinking light. It was almost invisible unless you knew what it meant. Victor had programmed it himself. It meant someone had tried to break in. May stepped out, wrapped in a towel, smiling. She said the shower had great water pressure. She asked if he was coming to bed. Victor closed the laptop and smiled. In a minute, he said. As she curled up to sleep, Victor stayed awake, watching the door, listening to the sounds of the building. His dead man's switch needed a code entered every 72 hours to stay inactive. If anything happened to him, it would go off. He thought of May, of what she didn't know. Tomorrow, he would tell her everything. They would move to one of the backup hotels. He would put their escape plan into action. But tomorrow would come too late. The day before their deaths started like any other. Victor woke up early and checked his systems while May was still asleep. Nothing had been broken into during the night, but the recent intrusion attempt still worried him. They had to leave soon. When May woke, they had breakfast on the balcony, tropical fruit and strong Balinese coffee. Victor tried to figure out how to start the conversation that would change everything. He suggested they check out a small hotel in Ubud the next day. It was in the mountains, surrounded by nature. He said it had a strong art community. May looked up from her mango, surprised. "We just got here," she said. "I thought we were staying a week." Victor hesitated. Then he told her the truth, or at least part of it. He told her he wasn't just a successful investor. He'd found something serious, something dangerous. A massive money laundering network hidden in the blockchain. The people behind it knew who he was. He thought they might have followed them to Bali. For the next hour, he explained as much as he could. The digital patterns, the secret messages, the fear that someone might come for him. He didn't mention everything, not the connections to government corruption, or the exact scale of what he'd uncovered. He wanted to protect her from the full weight of it. May listened, slowly realizing the danger she was in. Then her face changed. Shock turned to anger. "Why didn't you tell me before we left?" she asked. "You brought me here without giving me a choice." Victor admitted she was right. He'd made a mistake. He had tried to protect her, but in doing so, he'd lied. Now that she knew, he said, they had to move fast. He already had another hotel room booked under fake names. They'd go today. May stood at the window, looking out at the ocean. It still looked like paradise, but now it felt like a trap. After a long silence, she turned back to him. "Okay," she said. "We go, but no more secrets. If I'm in this, I get the full story." Victor agreed. They packed light, only what they could carry. They would pretend to be going out for the evening, leaving the rest of their luggage behind to avoid suspicion. As May prepared, Victor activated more parts of his contingency plan. He sent copies of his files to multiple secure locations. He triggered silent alerts. One message went to Lin Bai Chen in Singapore. It included detailed blockchain addresses and transaction data. Another moved a large portion of his crypto assets into protected wallets Gabriel could access if something happened. But Victor didn't know the twins had already placed a listening device in their room earlier that day, hidden during routine housekeeping. They hadn't broken into his laptop, but now they could hear every word he and May said. From their remote location, Jun reported to Kai, "They're leaving today." That changed everything. The original plan was to watch the couple longer, learn their habits, wait for the right moment. But now, with Victor planning to leave, Kai made a decision. They would strike that night. By the afternoon, Victor and May did everything they could to act normal. They spent time at the beach. Victor watched everyone. May sketched the coastline, her drawings acting as a cover. Their escape plan was to leave after dinner. They would take a taxi for shopping, then go straight to the new hotel, the Sarama Grand, located downtown. It was busy, full of business travelers, a better place to disappear. As the sun started to set, Victor felt a little hope. Maybe they were overreacting. Maybe no one was really following them. Maybe they could stay ahead long enough for his dead man's switch to do its job. Then he checked his phone. A message popped up from an unknown number. Some views don't last forever. Victor froze. He scanned the area, tourists walking along the beach, hotel staff preparing for the evening. Nothing looked suspicious, but he knew they were watching. He leaned close to May and whispered, "We need to go now," quietly. They returned to their room using a different route. Service corridors, back stairs. Victor watched every person they passed. Back in room 718, they grabbed their bags. Victor made one last sweep of the room. No signs left behind. Then the phone rang. They stopped moving, stared at it. After 3 rings, Victor picked it up and turned on the speaker. A calm, professional voice said he was from hotel security. He said someone had asked about them at the front desk. For their safety, he said, they should stay in the room. A team was on the way. Victor asked for his name. There was a short pause. "Mr. Santoso," the man answered. Victor ended the call. "That was fake," he told May. "Real security wouldn't warn us. They'd just show up. It's a trap." He told her they were leaving immediately, through the service stairwell. But before they reached the door unlocked. Victor acted fast. He pushed May into the bathroom. "Lock the door," he whispered. "Call for help. Don't come out." He grabbed a lamp. It was the only weapon he could find. The door opened. Kai Wong walked in, wearing a hotel security uniform. Behind him were Jian and Jun, dressed like regular hotel staff. Kai smiled politely. "Victor," he said, "we need to talk about some of your recent transactions." Victor denied knowing what he meant. Kai stayed calm. "No need to lie. The architect wants access to your accounts. Help us, and this stays easy." Before Victor could respond, there was a knock at the door. Real hotel security. They'd gotten the earlier distress signal. Jun answered through the door. "Just a small argument," she said. Kai held Victor in a painful grip and told him to stay calm. The hotel guard insisted on seeing both guests. Jian cracked the door just a little. Victor appeared, held in place, forced to smile. "Everything's fine," he said. "My girlfriend is just freshening up." The guard hesitated, but Victor's forced calm convinced him to walk away. As the door shut, Kai's kindness disappeared. He shoved Victor back into the room. Jian turned to the bathroom, kicked open the door, and forced his way in. Victor shouted for May to run, but it was too late. They already had her. Kai told Victor to stop resisting. "Give us what we want," he said. "No tricks." Victor agreed. The twins set up advanced equipment. Scanners, fingerprint readers, software to bypass layers of security. Victor gave up his fingerprint and facial scan, but he was also doing something else, activating a hidden emergency process. He was giving them part of the truth, but not all of it. Jun frowned. "There's a dead man's switch," she said. "If we guess wrong, everything locks down." Victor nodded. "I can turn it off. Let me." Kai gave him access. Victor began typing. But instead of disabling the switch, he triggered the final protocol. Evidence of the architect's operation began uploading to secure servers worldwide. Jun noticed too late. "He's sending it all," she shouted. Kai reacted instantly. He grabbed Victor, using a trained, silent method to subdue him before he could fight back. "Tell me what you did," he growled. Victor gasped. "I just took everything you've built and sent it to the people who can destroy it." In the chaos, Mei broke free. She locked herself in the bathroom. Jian rushed to stop her. Victor struggled, but Kai easily overpowered him. Victor dropped to the floor, disoriented and struggling to stay conscious. Inside the bathroom, Mei fought back, but Jian was stronger, trained. The outcome was already decided. Once they had what they came for, the team got to work. They added marks to Victor's body to make it seem like he had been attacked, then made the room look like there had been a fight between the couple. An angry, violent, personal fight. After that, they turned to Mei. Everything was arranged with precision to tell the wrong story. They wiped everything down, no fingerprints, no trace. It was clean, professional. Then, without a word, they slipped out through the service stairs, careful not to be seen. But Victor wasn't finished. Not yet. Fading in and out, he reached for his phone and pressed his thumb to the scanner. It activated the last message. One final signal to Gabriel Chen. Then, darkness. Detective Wyan Dharma stood in the hallway outside room 718. His sharp eyes took in the scene where Victor Zhao had died just hours earlier. Inside the room, forensic technicians worked carefully. They photographed overturned furniture, bloodstains, and signs of a struggle. The balcony door was open, letting in warm sea air. It was peaceful, but only on the surface. Dr. Kirana, the medical examiner, gave her early report. She estimated that both deaths happened between 10:30 and 11:15 p.m. the night before. Victor had defensive wounds, cuts and bruises that showed he'd fought back. Mei's body showed something else, a staged death. She had already died before being placed in the bathtub. Detective Dharma asked about hotel security. His junior officer, Putra, explained that one security guard had responded to a call from the room that night, but the guests had convinced him everything was fine. Now the guard deeply regretted not pushing for a full check. Surveillance footage didn't help much. The resort's cameras only covered public areas, not balconies or service stairways. What they did find were blurry images of three people whose faces were never clearly visible, likely their suspects. Dharma stepped out onto the balcony. From up there, the world looked normal. Guests swimming, families laughing, music playing. Just another day in paradise. But he knew better. He asked Putra to check for other hotel bookings under Victor and Mei's names. To some, that might seem like overkill, but not to Dharma. He had learned that the smallest details often opened the biggest doors. And he was right. They discovered that Victor and Mei had reserved 2 other hotel rooms in Bali, both paid for in advance but never used. They also found Victor's laptop. It contained encrypted files, advanced security systems, and evidence of recent hacking attempts. Even more troubling, they found professional-grade surveillance equipment designed to break through digital defenses. This was no relationship fight. This was an operation. Later that day, Lin Bai Chen arrived from Singapore. She reviewed the crime scene, flipping through the police files with a calm but focused expression. But when she saw the data, her face changed. She told Dharma something shocking. She had received an encrypted message the day before. It came from someone using the initials VZ. The message included blockchain addresses, transaction history, and technical evidence of a huge crypto-based laundering operation. Billions of dollars were being moved in secret, untraceable, hidden behind advanced technology. Lin didn't know the full story yet, but it was clear this case was much bigger than a double homicide. Meanwhile, back in Vancouver, Gabriel Chen received the message Victor had set to send as a final backup. His grief turned into determination. He began following the contingency plans they had worked on together. Within hours, financial agencies on 3 continents received secure data packages. The truth about the architect's network was spreading fast. Back in Hong Kong, the architect already knew something had gone wrong. Sophia Lin delivered the report. Zhao had triggered a dead man's switch. Encrypted evidence was already in the hands of investigators. Financial intelligence units around the world were starting to follow the digital trails. The architect's expression stayed calm, but his jaw clenched slightly. He asked about their team. Sophia said they had all escaped cleanly, no evidence left behind. He asked how bad the damage was. Sophia answered with precision. Around 40% of the network had been exposed. The architect gave new orders: activate backup systems, move remaining assets through hidden channels, and find Gabriel Chen fast. Back in Sarama, Dharma and Lin Bai Chen worked side by side, following the trail Victor had left behind. What they found was the full story of a young man who saw something dangerous and decided not to walk away. Lin spoke with quiet respect about the security systems Victor had built. She said they were among the most advanced she had ever seen. Even in his final hours, Victor had protected the evidence, made sure it would reach the right people. Dharma looked at photos from the crime scene. 2 young lives ended, 2 families broken, a story most people would never hear in full. Lin mentioned 3 others tied to the case, crypto experts who had died in strange, unexplained ways. Victor must have known the risks, but May, probably not. She had no idea what she was walking into. Dharma nodded. She didn't get a choice, he said. As the sky turned bright over Sarama, the investigation spread. Financial authorities began freezing accounts. Police in several countries reopened old cases. The powerful criminal network the architect had built over decades was falling apart. Longtime allies disappeared. Banks froze funds. People whispered about betrayal. Back at the Azure Bay Resort, Room 718 was sealed shut with yellow tape. Detective Dharma stood quietly on the shore, watching the sun rise over the water. The case would go on for months, maybe years. The criminals would be found, some of them at least. But justice wasn't perfect. Dharma knew that well. No court ruling could bring back Victor or May. Still, something had been won. The truth was no longer buried. A criminal empire had been exposed, and thanks to Victor Zhao, others might be saved. In Dharma's pocket was a small item, a sketchbook taken from May's belongings. It held watercolors of Shanghai, outlines of unfinished art, and on the last page, a painting of the Sarama coast at sunset. It was her final work. Dharma planned to send it to her parents. They deserved to see that her art and her voice had survived. Victor's legacy would live on, too. His data was already making its way through networks, lighting up systems, shaking institutions. The full impact would take time to understand, but it had started. The first stone had been thrown into still water, and the ripples could not be stopped. Maybe that wasn't full justice, but it was real, and that had to mean something. 6 months had passed since the events at the Azure Bay Resort. Gabriel Chen now lived in Toronto. He sat in a quiet cafe, a half-finished coffee beside him, and his laptop glowing with data. On the screen, colorful lines and numbers moved across a dark background. It was a visualization tool, a program he and Victor had designed years ago. It tracked crypto transactions. At first, it had been a way to study trends. Now, it was something much more powerful. Gabriel had kept his promise. He had followed Victor's instructions. He had made sure the evidence got where it needed to go. Most of the architect's criminal network had been taken apart, but not all of it. No one knew exactly where the architect had gone. Rumors said he escaped with part of his fortune. Some said he was building a new identity somewhere else, planning a comeback. Gabriel checked his encrypted messages. There was one from Lin Bai Chen. She had just finished a meeting with an Interpol task force. Another chunk of assets, around $340 million, had been seized from something called Network B. Investigators were still working to trace the rest. Gabriel nodded slightly as he read the message. Victor would have been proud. He closed the email and opened a photo folder. Inside were images from earlier years. Gabriel and Victor in college, both wearing old hoodies from their computer science department. A photo of Victor holding champagne at their first startup party, looking shocked at their success, and one photo that wasn't Gabriel's. It came from Detective Dharma, a picture found on May's phone. It showed Victor and May together in a Shanghai art gallery. They were smiling, happy, surrounded by her art. They looked like any young couple in love. Gabriel had never met May in person, but he felt like he knew her now. Through Victor's stories, through her art, through her quiet bravery in the final hours. He stared at the photo for a long time. Then he closed the laptop and looked around the cafe. Students typed on laptops. People laughed over brunch. Business meetings happened at nearby tables. Life moved on. But Gabriel knew how fragile it all was, how fast it could change. Victor had known that too. And still, he had chosen to fight back. He had chased the truth. He had built protections not just for himself, but for others. And when the time came, he gave everything to make sure that truth would be heard. There was something powerful in that choice, something worth honoring. In a world where everything moves through digital systems, money, identity, communication, the most important thing is still the human part. Courage, loyalty, sacrifice, those never go out of style. Gabriel finished his coffee and packed up his things. There was more work to do, more patterns to find, more digital ghosts to uncover. And far away, in a quiet police station on the island of Surama, Detective Dharma kept a small framed picture on his desk. It was Mei Zhang's watercolor painting of the coastline at sunset. She had signed it simply, MZ. Some ghosts don't haunt out of fear. Some stay behind as reminders of what was lost, of what was revealed. Victor Zhao and Mei Zhang were gone, but the echoes of their story were still spreading through servers, emails, police reports, and whispers in powerful places. Their time on this earth was short, but the ripples they left behind would reach shores they never lived to see. Do you think Victor Zhao made the right choice by bringing Mei with him instead of going into hiding alone? Let us know in the comments. Real-life crypto crimes are happening every day. Hit that subscribe button if you want more fictionalized stories inspired by the dark side of digital finance.